Welcome to Man Cave Movie Night.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Today, as you are well aware from the title of the episode that you clicked on, we're talking about adaptations. And I thought that it would be fun to play a game that I like to call one of these four options is an adaptation. Tell me if you can tell me which one is the adaptation. It's a working title.
I like the title, and I like the multiple choice option.
A little bit,
but so I will tell you right now. I know for a fact that one of each of these options is an adaptation. And I'm super close to certain that the other options are not adaptations. But if one slipped past me, I apologize in advance. Okay?
So be it. It'll be fun. It'll be fine and good.
We're going to take turns. I've got sets of 4 movies. Who wants to go first?
Let's have Jared go first.
Yeah.
Jared, go first.
Me first.
Jared.
Yes.
One of these 4 options is an adaptation. Tell me if you can tell me which one is the adaptation.
That's like the name of the game.
We got Die Hard, Lethal Weapon,
I
Rambo,
know Die Hard's a book.
Point
so
Break.
Can we
yes.
skip?
Yep. Okay. There we go.
There you go.
Super fun. That's a great game. Do you know the name of the book?
No, I know it's of a different name though, and nobody really read it.
Okay.
Because nobody knew that it was a book.
It is a sequel to a book that also, fun fact, was made into a movie. It's a book and movie called The Detective. And Frank Sinatra was in it. And
interesting.
Fun fact, because of Die Hard being technically a sequel to that, they were contractually obligated to offer the role to Frank Sinatra before they could go to other people.
Interesting.
Lovely.
That's hilarious. I had no clue.
Kind of an interesting little thing.
I would have gotten that one wrong.
I had
that's
no
very interesting.
clue that Die Hard was a book. Apparently,
I didn't either.
That's
yeah.
a thing that's
a sequel to a book as well.
All right, I'll explain. So, John Green of the Vlogbrothers is getting his book, Turtles All the Way Down, made into a movie this year.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's coming to Max. It's another John Green. If you like his other ones, you'll probably like it.
Nice.
However, he, for his Vlogbrothers video, did a little how books become movies. And
Gotcha.
in that, he talked about examples of movies, like books that sold more copies after they became a movie, and books that really didn't. And Die Hard was one that really didn't. And I also did not know Die Hard was a book until truly, what day is it? Wednesday? Yesterday.
Wow.
Oh, that video was yesterday?
Wow.
Very
That's
topical.
This
Very
worked out
topical.
great.
Nice.
Turtles
Yeah,
All the Way
worked out
Down is
perfectly.
also the name of a Sturgill Simpson song. I don't know if there's any connection. Maybe that song is an adaptation.
I think he adapted the song into the book, and now the book's being adapted into the movie.
Could be.
Very
It's a
cool.
very pretty song. Anyway, next question. Lucas, you're up. Again, this is all stuff that I didn't know. It's very possible that all of these are way easy.
Well, I had no clue
we're
on the
about to
last
find
one.
out.
Yeah, I found out yesterday. I was just going to write it off like, oh yeah, I know that.
Okay.
I've known that for a long time.
Lucas, are you ready
Yes.
for the question number 2? Flushed Away, How to Train Your Dragon, Shrek, Kung Fu Panda.
Ooh.
I also know this one. Just saying.
I'm pretty sure How to Train Your Dragon is based on a book. But I'm also pretty sure Shrek is based on a book.
Okay, so what's your final answer?
My final answer is How to Train Your Dragon. Because I know for a fact that is based on a book.
Okay, well then you're probably right. Shrek was my answer.
Yeah, my answer was also How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay,
so.
I didn't know that was a book. That's super cool.
Yeah,
though.
it is.
I put this together. I was pretty sure that none of them were books.
Well,
sorry.
Here's the thing. I also just found out How to Train Your Dragon is based on a book because I saw an article about how the live action version of it is going to be more based on the book. It's not a remake of the animated movie. It's an adaptation of the book. And I was like, huh, interesting. I mean, it is technically a remake of the animated version, but it's more, they're like, yeah, it's not going to be a remake of that technically because we're going more off of the book.
Is it?
Like, wow, I didn't even know
better
it was
be Jay Baruchel playing the guy.
No, it's not. No. He's too old. He's too old now.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I want it.
Oh, I see.
Weird.
But isn't Gerard Butler still playing Daddy?
I think so. I think there's like one or two. Maybe,
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Who are translated over.
There might be some.
All right. Well, we're 2 questions in, and this is kind of a fluke. I'll give you the information that I have about Shrek.
It's good.
Which is, it is a kid's book called Shrek with an exclamation mark. Fun fact that I have for you, named after the Yiddish/German word Schreck, Schreck, which means fear or fright. So there's your fun little datum about that.
That is fun.
Okay. Next up, Jared.
Me.
Get ready.
Ready.
I'm ready too. Your options are How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Legally Blonde, 13 Going on 30, and The Proposal.
Wait. Well.
Uh-oh.
Okay, sorry. Let me think out loud for a second. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days? That's... Okay, no. It's 13... No, it's... Say them again. Okay. I was trying to remember truly which movie was which movie.
Oh, because of the
because I was
like,
rom-coms kind of get mixed a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah, there's 3 numbers across.
I've got
these
Legally
4
Blonde.
Answers. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Legally Blonde, 13 Going on 30, The Proposal.
Okay. 13 Going on 30 sounds like it could be a good book.
And The Proposal is just way too original to have been adapted from something.
So true. They could not have come up with that. I'm going to go with Legally Blonde.
Legally Blonde is correct.
Nice. Good guess.
And my fun fact about that one is it was written by Amanda Brown, who dropped out of Stanford Law School and wrote Legally Blonde based on her experiences.
Interesting.
That makes it less fun.
It also, but
yeah, really,
here's the thing. She didn't like the Legally Blonde script because it, I guess, was like kind of too funny for her.
I see.
She kind of like, her book was supposed to be kind of more kind of serious,
like a critique. Yeah.
The misogyny in Stanford Law
was a comedy, but hey, it worked out. I love Legally Blonde,
and it got me.
It worked out for me,
and it got him.
And it got Jared a point. Okay, Lucas, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Say I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. Baby's Day Out, The Sandlot, Mrs. Doubtfire, Turner and Hooch.
Oh, man. 4 of my favorite movies.
They're really good.
That's, I think, it's ironic because those are Lucas's top 4 on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I just updated my profile to add those. Oh, man. Could you say them again? I forgot all of them.
Absolutely. Baby's Day Out, The Sandlot, Mrs. Doubtfire, Turner and Hooch.
Mrs. Doubtfire. Final answer.
Mrs. Doubtfire is correct.
Ooh, nice.
Man,
let's
you
go.
guys are just absolutely tearing this to pieces. And
is that a book or a play?
It is a novel called Madame Doubtfire.
They should have kept that name.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the shortened title.
Madame makes it seem a little bit too formal.
He's more approachable.
Yeah. Well, this article that I got it from is pretty funny. It says, written by beloved British children's author Anne Fine, Madame Doubtfire is one step ahead of the Robin Williams starring adaptation in that its main cast aren't all idiots. The two eldest children realize almost immediately that their new nanny is actually their father in disguise, as any sane person with eyes would. So that's kind of an interesting thing about Madame Doubtfire. Okay, this one I felt nervous about as I was writing it down, but
not anymore.
Well, no, I feel way worse about it now.
Good.
But
cool.
It was recording time, and so here it is, Jared.
I'm ready.
Ready?
Let's hear it.
Rear Window, Rope, Psycho, The Birds.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I feel conflicted.
Yeah, me too.
I kind of want to go with Psycho.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go with Psycho.
Great. That's correct.
Nice.
Yeah! I say I'm nervous
Who do
about
you
that
think you are? I am.
As I was putting it together, I was like, what if Hitchcock was one of those guys that adapted everything? Like, maybe, I don't know. Who's to say? So
I think
it's possible
Rear Window
that those other ones
as a
also are.
Yeah, that as a play, I was thinking that as well. Like, could have been.
Yeah, it could be.
It certainly was a play after.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Definitely
a novel, also, I believe, called Psycho. And there is a first edition that is... It's like not even like deviated. It's the book, basically. Norman and Mother, the characters. There were a lot of similarities that people drew between the book and the Ed Gein murders, which he says, okay, that's not the same. They were totally disconnected. But then in like a second edition, he added kind of an allusion to Ed Gein somewhere in the book.
Interesting.
To kind of honor the fact that, like, while he did come up with it himself, it is also eerily similar to the Ed Gein stuff, so he was like, I should probably reference this. And
I think Hitchcock did base some of that character off of Ed Gein in the movie.
Oh, it's gotta be. It's gotta be. So, okay, I got a cough and then one more. I'm going to mute my mic and cough. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Oh, let's all clap for Niles coughing, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Imagine it in your head to what it sounded like. Okay?
I see.
It sounded like this.
Yeah, it is pretty similar to that. Okay, Lucas, this one's the last one, and it's for all the money.
Okay.
If you get this right, you win.
No.
Even though we would tie, but I would still win.
No, yeah, I don't. There's no winner in this. There's only losers and me.
Well, if we tie, you win. Remember?
Yeah, that's the rules.
The rule is if we
true.
tie, the host wins.
Yeah,
that's true. Okay, keep that in mind.
So I'll lose on.
But How I Met Your Dragon. How to train your mother. That was only a half point, right? Because Shrek was the real answer. Because
Shrek was my real answer. So
okay.
I don't know how to. Rule
so I get 2 points then because I identified them both correctly.
Yeah, you pointed out the flaw in my system. Okay, last question, Lucas.
Yes.
Miracle on 34th Street, Christmas in Connecticut, The Santa Claus, It's a Wonderful Life.
Pretty sure Miracle on 34th Street is a book. So that's my answer.
It might be. We'll have to look it up, but you're not getting the point for it.
Was it Wonderful Life?
It's a Wonderful Life, which is based on a short story called The Greatest Gift.
The Greatest Gift. All right, let's find out.
Yeah, are you going to look it up right now and make me look dumb before the theme music even plays?
Well, we can play the music and
Let's
then
play the music.
Miracle on 34th Street is a best-selling novella by Valentine Davies.
Oh, no! Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking around as long as you have in this episode. it's only going to get better. So buckle in and strap up because it's happening.
Because it's only going to get better.
Right now. We're talking about adaptations. I think that the reason that I picked this topic is because we've got two kind of heavy hitter adaptations going on right now. Adapted screenplay with what's it called? Oppenheimer.
Turtles All the Way Down.
And then adapted property with freaking Barbie or whatever that category is called. So yeah, there's kind of the big two of this year both fall under the category of adaptation in one way or another. I think a lot of the time we think of adaptations as just like, oh, it was a book and now it's a movie. But there's a lot of different ways it can go, like The Color Purple. It was on stage and then it was a movie. That's an adaptation too.
And the Percy Jackson.
And
Percy Jackson was the guy's idea. Well, first it was they were the gods, and then they were adapted into his ideas. And then they were adapted into a book.
I see. Yeah, technically the books are an adaptation of Greek mythology. So
yeah. It's interesting. There's a lot of layers of adaptation there.
And Turtles All the Way Down is sung.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're just going to be talking about adaptations today. I will be the first to say that I think most of the time adaptations, I don't know. Whoa. Most of the time adaptations that are like, look, we've taken this thing and we're adapting it. Those end up sucking. I think.
What?
Whereas stuff that there's a lot of stuff that kind of flies under the radar as an adaptation that I feel like a lot of the time that's where it's really, that's kind of where the treasure is. Because it's like, okay, we've got this thing, but we're not trying to just, like get money from the fan base that already exists from that thing. This is a piece of art that we enjoy, that we want to turn into a movie and have it be kind of its own thing, So that's how I feel about adaptations. I think the ones that really brag about being an adaptation usually aren't very good. But there are a lot of adaptations that people aren't aware of.
Oh, true, like some of the ones we learned.
Or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Okay, I said
or
usually.
Harry Potter. I see what you're saying. And there are some, I love finding out it's an adaptation after the fact.
In the credits.
What the heck? Based on the book?
By
Glad I didn't have to read it now.
That saved me so much time.
This was the way better way to view that. Or versus there's some that use that as the sole marketing. Kind of same with like a based on a true story. Yeah. It's like, just because it's a true story doesn't mean it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Like
or
I didn't see the boys
inspired
in the
by
boat.
Real events.
Sounds like it wasn't that inspiring.
Yeah, I didn't bother with that movie.
But so I see what you're saying. But I think, we talked about this with sequels or remakes.
One of them.
It's the intent.
Yep.
If a filmmaker has this passion to create a project and they're going in with this fresh take, or they're trying to stay true, or they're trying to, inject it with something new, whatever it is, if their vision's there, their heart's in it, it's probably going to be good. Or at least it's a respectable retelling of a story.
Totally.
Yeah.
Or just a translation to another medium, like an animated, beloved anime people love into live action Netflix. Poorly written, poorly produced, poorly lit, poorly acted.
You're talking about Moana, right?
Yeah, I am talking about Moana. Moana 2 was just announced.
Yeah, did you hear about that?
Yeah.
That was kind of wild. I watched a little announcement.
This year, I'm like, what the? They've just been sitting on this? Why?
Yeah.
Why do that when they're already remaking it in live action?
It's so bizarre.
That is. Here's my thing. I bet that there's an adaptation for you. Live action adaptation of an animated movie that came out 5 years ago.
Yeah, which
that
just
movie doesn't get
should not
made.
exist.
That's my prediction. Live action Moana doesn't get made. Yeah.
I would love for that to be the case.
Yeah.
For that movie to never exist.
I would love for that to be the case too. I just don't see it happening. I see him moving on to other things and Disney being like, we're not going to waste our money on this. We're just going to keep making animated versions
that I
of this
want to happen equally I want them to cancel. No. I don't want them to cancel it. I want them to make it, and then I want it to fail so hard.
Oh.
I think Disney needs some failures.
Dude, they had a whole year of failures.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. They've had this crazy year of failures, and they still haven't canceled this awful idea of a movie. Like,
not yet.
They need failures to the point that they learn something.
Yeah,
no, they can fail, but the mouse is bulletproof. We all know that.
We should do an episode on the mouse.
The mouse.
That's what we'll call it.
Just Disney.
That would be a good episode. But Disney, as in like the state of Disney now.
The state of Disney
with them. Like,
that would be fun because they're just
state of the mouse address.
All they're trying to do is adapt their animated movies into live action and then just watch them flop.
Yeah.
So
yeah, anyway. But yeah, there's a lot of great ones. I don't want to bring too many of them up because there are a lot of other ones, honestly, that I wanted to put in that game at the beginning, but I was like, well, we're probably going to want to talk about that in the episode, so I avoided
fair.
it.
You did a good job of creating those themed questions.
Thanks, Lucas. That was a nice compliment.
I think I'm going to have to head out now. I'm done, guys, for the night.
Okay.
Well, see you later.
Well, who wants to go first with their question? I feel like all of the questions could be a good first question.
I should go last. That's what I say.
And I should go second.
All right.
So Niall goes first.
My question is, we've already kind of gotten into it a little bit, but with those kind of bigger adaptations is how we're going to say it now.
Well, that's the correct way to say it.
I have a professor, by the way. This is a little side note. We were talking about social media influencing today, and he calls influencers influencers.
Ugh.
And he says it that way every time. And I was like, dude, you got to learn how to say that word before you teach a whole class on it. Anyway.
So well, can I throw in, I had a very, very Indian chemistry teacher, and he would say things like magnesium.
Cool.
And I'm like, nice. I don't know what I'm supposed to mix with what right now. And it was for the lab. It was
nice.
I was like, I'm just gonna start messing.
I'm gonna start mixing. Let's see what blows up.
What goes up.
Something's gonna work.
Thanks, Dr. Entaraj.
But my question is, how do you adapt something that's a beloved property in a way that's conventionally good while also keeping the original fans happy? Because I feel like sometimes it's kind of a trade-off. There's a way that you can keep the fans happy, but then you sacrifice conventional goodness.
Yeah.
Or you have to change it to make it so like, okay, this actually makes sense, but then fans get upset. My example for that is The Iron Claw. Based on the true events of the Von Erich family. However, to make the movie make sense, they had to fully exclude one of the children of that family. There's an extra Von Erich child that's just not in the movie. And if you read comment sections about the movie, it's either people talking about how much they love the movie or wrestling people that are like, they cut Chris Von Erich out of the movie. It's terrible. Like 0 out of 10. Yeah. So like there's kind of a fine, but I think that they made the right call and they made that movie basically a perfect movie because of it. So there's a lot of decisions you have to make. What's the best approach?
Yeah, I'll start tackling it. I think this is more of a conversation than
absolutely.
Here's my answer. But I think the main thing is boil down the story to the roots of it, and what kind of, first of all, what theme are you going to be telling with the story? Like, what's the moral there? And then what are the key elements in the story that need to exist for it to make sense, for it to land, right? There's plenty of movies that take basically a skeleton of what they're adapting and then just make up something new. Mm-hmm. And that works great. I mean, like, think of comic book stories. You've got plenty of source material there. A ton of iterations of like the same character. How do you choose one? Even if you're adapting one specific story, how true do you need to stay to it?
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters that much. Just figure out, okay, who is the character? What is, like, Spider-Man, for example? What's kind of the boil down the story to its main components if you're doing that origin story? What's that kind of rising action? What's that little what'd you call that in storytelling? The inciting incident.
Inciting incident, yeah.
Yeah, that sends him on his way. And then, what's the theme?
That's the end of the movie, idiot.
Yeah, I know. We were asking for words.
No, the end is when he gets bit by a spider.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the end.
That's how the whole movie story.
Yeah.
Pre-origin
pictures of Mary Jane.
That's really cool of him.
But yeah, I think that's a good place to start. Like, for example, there's books that I would like to see adapted that I'm like, I don't really care if you get every detail right. Obviously, I'm a big fan of this franchise, but what I care about is you get the characters right, you get the themes right. You don't have to add every character in. I understand that. And so maybe I'm just more of a relaxed fan. Mm. But the thing is you're never going to be perfect with it. Otherwise, you're going to get pacing that's horrendous.
Yeah.
And not,
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's my start. And Popcorn Lucas.
Cool. Yeah, I very much like what you just said and agree with it, so I'm going to add on to it. I think a good adaptation a lot of the times will respect the audience but reward the fans. So I think it's like, hey,
write that down.
You're like, for example, I probably will bring this up a few times, but I think Dune is a great example of a book that many claimed to be impossible to adapt, that was approached in a very respectful way to the source material, but also to the audience saying, hey, we are going to present this story as best we can, and hopefully you pick up on everything. But also, if you're a fan, you're going to notice the glow globes, and you're going to know what a hunter-seeker is, and you're going to know that that's a film book, and you're going to know all these, like, that's a shield, like all these things that they kind of talk about at first but don't really explain super in depth.
Yeah.
But you would recognize it's like, oh, that's what that is from the book or whatever.
You don't have to go down Diagon Alley and say, well, these are the different animals you can choose and stuff like. You just say, look, this guy's got an owl, or you just see an owl in the background, and you're like, that's how they get the mail.
Yeah, and I think with Dune, it's versus like Harry Potter. I guess Harry Potter is definitely. I thought that worked just because it's more of a kid's thing.
Yeah, and so I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just just giving an example.
The difference, totally. But with Dune as well, Denis Villeneuve, the director, said ever since he was a kid, he wanted to make Dune into a movie. And so much so that he didn't, like, once he became successful as a director, it wasn't like, cool, now I can make my second movie and it's going to be Dune. He was pacing himself, working on the script, looking for distribution, looking for producers, and he even made 2 sci-fi films prior to prepare himself and give him the experience he felt would be necessary to adapt it properly. So it's again like that respect to the source material, where it's like he loves it so much, and it had been adapted prior like 2 or 3 other times, and he was like, I want to do it in a way that is going to be loyal but also bring in new fans. And at this point in time of recording, we have only gotten part 1, but in a couple short weeks, we will have consumed part 2. And from all accounts of people so far, they're saying it's his best movie so far. It's a great adaptation, but it's also a cool war movie. Like, it's just,
I'm so hyped.
The comparisons, and you can take this with a grain of salt, but the comparisons are always, when it's a great sequel, to Empire Strikes Back and The Dark Knight. But that is the comparisons going around. So those are cool having those brought up.
That's great.
In a similar vein of like, hey, this is like this equal in terms of a sequel to a first film. So
equal as a sequel. I want to keep going on Dune for a little bit because I feel like it also represents a good ability to sacrifice some moments that maybe make the book amazing, but that just wouldn't translate. and still like, so there's this scene, it's a kind of a banquet scene where they have a bunch of like noble houses over and they're having this dinner. And if you break that scene up as you're reading it into dialogue versus just like thought process, I would wager that it ends up being maybe 5 to 10% dialogue and then 90 to 95% thought process. It's a very, very cool scene in the book that just shows how all of these tiny things that they're saying and doing just have these huge implications for what they could be doing. And it dives into the family's histories and whatnot and what they're all like strategizing and trying to do. And it's just, you couldn't adapt that scene and make it matter at all in the movie, especially with the rest of the style of the movie.
And especially how big of a scale the rest of the movie is. Even just that brief scene in the meeting the war council immediately cuts to their back outside looking at the ornithopters. Like there's very much, it moves forward. And so there's a lot of people who don't like Dune are like, it's boring, it doesn't explain anything, blah blah blah. And so back to the respect the audience, like, you're right, it doesn't explain everything, but it does do a good enough job of laying out the story for you to understand it if you haven't read the book. But again, if you have, you're going to be really appreciative because you're like, oh, you can kind of fill in the gaps that they don't show you with your headcanon or whatever, what you know happens in the book. So, you know, in theory, that scene did happen for these characters in the movie. They just didn't show it in the adaptation. And so I think that's to the benefit of the movie. And foo to the people who criticize Dune because stinky opinion. Bad job.
So true.
That's an objectively bad opinion to not like Dune.
My least favorite thing to hear from people who criticize Dune is Zendaya perfume ad. And I'm just like, that is the most regurgitated, half-baked opinion. And people are like, look how clever I am. Zendaya perfume ad, tee-hee. I know how to criticize.
Are they saying it dumbest. It looks like a Zendaya perfume ad?
Well, they're saying that's
because she doesn't say anything. It just shows like cutesy shots of her.
And so
in visions.
Here's the thing. I just rewatched this last week.
I don't think I've heard that before.
It's funny, but it's not a criticism. And people will say like Dune is bad because of Zendaya perfume ad.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're an idiot.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing for part 2.
We're gonna get a Zendaya perfume movie here soon. So just hold your horses.
Get amped for that one. The spinoff.
Can't wait.
I wanted to add really quick with what Niall was saying that it's very, very true that pretty much every story and you're going to read that's adapted, especially fantasy, you're going to get a lot of intermonologues from the characters, right? They're going to be talking through situations and you're going to be seeing them make decisions and stuff. And a movie just does not have enough time to go through all of those beats.
Yeah.
Right? And to like, you know, some do like voiceover things, you know, like American Psycho, which we've all seen.
Yes.
Yes.
But
based on a book,
you can't really do that for every movie. So there's one thing to make a great story. I think the director and writer have to really understand subtext.
Yeah.
So you can skip over a bunch of that and just show like a shot of someone reacting to something. So you know, oh, this character was offended by that, or this relationship is strained. And so later so you can keep moving the story along, right? Again, like Dune, seeing like some of the shots of just Lady Jessica. And you know, in the book, you get a lot of Lady Jessica stuff. You know basically everything going on with her. And sometimes in the movie, you just got to keep going. And so it's like, let's get a shot of, what's that actress? Rebecca Ferguson. And she does her thing. And you're like, okay, that's how she's feeling right now.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to explain much. And then you just move on.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say.
Yep.
But yeah, it really does. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that it is, I recently saw, this kind of maybe spoils one of my answers for a later question, but in reading about the kind of plans for a Mistborn movie, it sounds like Brandon Sanderson's goal with the screenplay is to focus less on the thieving crew and have the focus kind of just be on the main characters, like Vin, Kelsier, Elend, Lord Ruler. Like, that's the focus of the thing. Yeah. And I really like that understanding of, okay, this is cool, and it's a really cool dynamic to have in the book. However, the movie is going to have to feel different in order for the pacing to make sense.
Yeah.
Because especially with books, the pace of a book is just not the pace of a movie.
No.
Like, if you do a 1-to-1 adaptation of pretty much any book into a movie and like pace it the same way, that movie's probably going to suck real bad. You know?
Well, I think that's incredibly true. And I think we can agree that every adaptation typically takes those liberties and adjusts the material to fit the story, right? And so my question is actually right along that line.
Sigma.
Segue Sigma.
Segue
like
King. What do you think is like the best change that we've seen in an adaptation, or what's an example of a really good one at least? I'll throw in an example that I gave you guys in preparation, but in the Fellowship of the Ring, it's really slow to start. The book is, right? It takes a long time for them to even get to Rivendell, the hobbits to get to Rivendell, and the Fellowship to be formed. And part of that is because they meet this dude named Tom along the way. Tom Bombadil. And that guy's nowhere near the movie. He's not even in deleted scenes. You know what I'm saying? No reference. That guy does not exist. And I think that's a great decision. Because it's cool lore building. Mm-hmm. He's an interesting character in the long run, I guess, of Middle-earth's lore. However, it would have made the movie a little stinky at that part, I think. I just don't see it being a good change. So that's just an example. They took out this whole character.
But what about the lore idea that Tom Bombadil is Sauron in disguise? What about that, Jared, huh?
Bad.
Well, that's bogus. Because he literally gets the ring. So if that was him in disguise...
He did a bad job doing anything with that ring.
He flubbed it, bro. He flubbed it.
Yeah.
Frodo hands him the ring and he puts it on. If you're telling me he was Sauron in disguise.
Yeah, they were talking about bringing him into the Hobbit movies, and they had 3 more of those and didn't bring him into any of those either, so...
Rippers.
Got him.
Sorry, Tom.
Sorry,
Not a
Tom character
Bombadil.
that deserves screen
Hey
time.
ho,
I guess not.
a Tom Bombadillo. I just remember listening to that song.
Here?
That's a song.
Yeah, that's exactly.
his song.
I'm Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, there are songs in Lord of the Rings books.
Well, yeah.
They also cut
just
songs,
didn't know there was
which was good.
Tune
Yeah.
to it.
There's like 2 songs that made the final cut of those movies, and those 2 songs are great.
Yep.
Is one of them
like
the tomato eating
Pippin's
song?
Yeah, dude, that
Yeah.
song.
Nice.
So good.
That song rips.
It really does.
I love it.
Yeah. Turns out we love to talk
Yeah,
about.
well,
I mean, I love to talk about Lord of the Rings and Dune because they're great adaptations. But Niall, if you had something, you can go first.
Well, I thought you were going to say your answer, but I can say mine.
However you prefer.
Okay. Well, now I
I don't think
spaced on.
the audience cares.
Okay.
I don't think they care at
Well,
all.
since Niall was yapping, I'll speak.
Oh, okay.
Mine will be pretty quick, but mine is also an omission of a character, and that is from the Harry Potter franchise, and that is Peeves the Ghost. Because in a similar fashion, Peeves in the book he's in every single book. And that is very effective for the kids who are goofing and gaffing and digging around in Hogwarts to be interrupted by this mischievous little ghost. But in the movie, that would have been a little bit too silly, I think. And so I think it was a very smart decision to omit him. There are also, like, Dobby is in every single book after Chamber of Secrets. He keeps showing up for some reason. And maybe it would have been cool to check in on him before the 7th one, but at the same time, it kind of makes his reappearance a little bit more meaningful because it's like, oh, hey, Harry hasn't seen Dobby for a while, and it's kind of cool that he shows up again. So I think in terms of like the silly character, or the character who in the book is kind of, the rascally guy who's not one of the main main units, that's typically a good change, and I think Peeves is a good example of that being removed.
Yeah. If they had to, that's just one less of the annoying NPC characters that we had to deal with.
Exactly.
In those movies, because you all know my opinions on Dobby. Anyway,
you have a positive.
No, I hate Dobby. I hate Dobby a lot.
I didn't know that.
A sexual awakening for you?
No way.
No way.
I hate that little thing. Anyway, I've got two answers.
Let's hear them both.
My first answer is omitting Mistress Death from Infinity War. In the comic storyline, Thanos' main motivator is that he is in love with the personification of death, and he is basically trying to woo her by killing so many people.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool in the comics because they've kind of built up that lore to that point, but we got one tiny reference to it in the Avengers post-credit scene where he says to challenge them is to court death, and then Thanos smiles, which is a great reference, and that's all we needed.
Yep.
And then giving him another motivator that is just way more compelling for live action. I just like Marvel, of course, has changed so many things from the comics, as Jared brought up earlier. Some of them are just kind of trivial, though. Like, okay, instead of doing this, we're going to do that so that it's different.
Yeah.
However, this was a change that was so that it's better as a movie. And I just really appreciated that one. The other one is Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. I read about this. The original book has a very kind of horrifically tragic ending. Where basically the character of Jojo basically just doesn't tell the girl that the war is over, and he keeps her hostage for like years and years, just kind of mentally manipulates her into thinking that like he's the only way that she can survive because he's just like in love and obsessed with her. And then she gets out and like, I can't remember. I feel like maybe one of them dies. I can't remember. I don't remember what it said. But the movie has a very different ending than that. I won't say anything in case you clicked on Adaptations and weren't expecting to have Jojo Rabbit spoiled for you. But
it's a pretty fair warning, I would say.
Yeah. But it has a much more kind of optimistic and positive outlook, which first of all fits Taika's directing style and writing style much more, but also allows for him to kind of have more creativity with it. Of course, in Jojo Rabbit, the book, he doesn't have Hitler as a figment of his imagination friend that appears to him and talks to him. He's just fully devoted to the cause. Yeah. And so he made these alterations to visualize that devotion in kind of a comedic way, but then also show this character's cognitive dissonance between what he's been taught and what he's now learning, which is fantastic. Like, it's great. I'm sure that an adaptation of Jojo Rabbit, or whatever the book is actually called, because it's got a different name, but an adaptation of that book true to the book would probably be awesome in a very, very different way. Yeah. But to make that movie and to take something with a story like that and alter it into a message of hope and overcoming adversity and being able to progress as a person and change the way that you see things is an awesome message. And I think that it's really interesting that he took the story but kind of applied a new theme to it, which is risky territory. But it turned out pretty well for him. So those are my answers.
Those are great.
Thanks,
great
guys.
Answers.
Thanks for the compliment.
So I thought I had an answer, and so I was trying to do research on it really quick because I was like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was incorrect about that.
Is Tom Bombadil just your example, not your answer?
That was my example. It might be my answer.
Also a good answer, though.
This is... it's a good answer.
It's a great answer, yeah.
There's plenty in Lord of the Rings that were changed in great ways, but that's by far the glaring like omission.
Yeah.
So no, I was gonna say West Side Story actually, because I'm pretty sure they changed the order of songs from the Broadway to the movie. Is that correct?
They changed the order, and some of them they changed who was singing them and like the context around it. Cool was sung in a fully different context than it is in the stage musical.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it a lot, and I thought it worked really well in the movie, in Steven Spielberg's adaptation of it. Yeah. That just was recently made a couple years ago. So that was going to be my other answer, but I was getting mixed up on what songs specifically were changed, and I was like, oh, boy, here we go.
You're like, whoa.
There's another
boy.
change in that movie that I really like, that is Doc, they changed that role into Doc's wife. Just a female version of the character, which at first is just kind of like, all right, whatever, like who cares, like if you switch that, but I really do like it, because honestly I feel like West Side Story originally probably came out in a time where it was just like, there's like a wise character that offers a lot of insight, a man, like whatever. Sure. But Doc's role is so kind of inherently like protective mama bear, like matronly vibes of just like, I don't care what you've done wrong. I know that things are going bad, but I'm here to protect you because I love you and care about you. And I just like that lady, whoever it is, I don't know the name of this actress, but she was perfect in that role. And I don't know if that was in the script to have that changed, or if they found this lady and she was so good that it was like, we got to get her in here. I don't know what it was, but whatever it is, I call it a good change just because it meant that she was in the movie. And she was like my favorite part of that movie. Like she was so good.
I mean, the Anita stuff at the end when she goes and tries to warn Tony. It kind of hits different. I mean, it's still both, it's powerful, but it kind of hits different that it's the woman they're all close with that's calling them out on it.
Yeah. Oh,
so
I want to watch that
movie. I kind of want to watch it again too.
Yeah, that's such a good adaptation. So is that the one who is like the returning actress from the film version, or no? 'Cause it's like the older grandma
it's the old
type.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
I think so.
Yeah, she's the main character in the original movie from the 60s.
Oh,
she's
I
Maria.
didn't know
She's
that.
Maria, yeah.
That's cool.
Well, then that could have informed the decision to some degree.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And she just recently died as well.
Oh. Well,
this is no longer fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that, we'll see you on another Man Cave. Just kidding.
There's more question. Here is my question for you, unless you guys had more to say about Jared's question. If not, we can do mine.
Well, I'll say another Lord of the Rings one.
Let's hear it.
Freaking, is it not Aowen. The chick
Arwen?
Aragorn loves. Arwen. Yeah,
Too
she's
close.
like not in the books.
Oh,
She
really?
is at the very end of Return of the King when they get married. I like having her in the movies.
Oh, she's a great addition.
She's awesome.
It really
But that
motivates him a lot.
When Frodo's being taken to Rivendell after being stabbed on Weathertop, that's just some elf.
Interesting.
Just some dude. He's like, I got him.
Hey, I'll help out. It's me, Elf Man.
Anyway, so that's a good change.
What a good improvement.
Streamlines it a bit, makes all the characters who are in it more important.
Totally.
Well, it adds depth to her character for sure, but also to Aragorn.
Yeah.
Like,
just by the fact she gets any screen time at all. It's like
he's like, and then in the books he's kind of like, I kind of like this chick. Anyway,
name's Strider.
Anyway,
well, in the book too, he's like so accepting of his position as heir to the throne. He's like, I'm Aragorn. I want to be king.
Yeah, he's pretty immediately with, and he yields the broken sword.
Yeah, from book 1. It doesn't get
From
reforged.
book 1.
Yeah.
No.
Which I think is also a great change.
Thanks.
It's reforged in the third one, but he's using the fragment of it, which is so sick.
Yeah, that is.
And it lights on fire. Yep. Anyway, whatever.
Pretty rad.
Pretty dope. For a book that came out in the 40s.
It was the 60s, right? Was it the 40s? Lord of the Rings?
Was it that
really?
much later? The Hobbit came out in the 30s.
I know Hobbit was the 30s, and I know he took a long time. But I don't know if it was...
Well, 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
I thought that... I just assumed that it was the 40s. Maybe it was later than that. Yeah, look it up for
us.
54. 1954.
We were both wrong.
We split the difference.
Yeah, split the difference. We're both right.
I think that's the same year that the first Godzilla movie came out, which is weird perspective.
That is kind of wild.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that movies existed when the Lord of the Rings came out. In my mind, that's kind of weird.
That's crazy.
The one final thing on Lord of the Rings before we move on to my question, but Christopher Tolkien, the son of John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, he did not like the adaptations, the movie adaptations at all. He was very much not a fan. Yeah, he was like, I don't think my dad would have liked him either. And I'm like, oh man, whatever, dude. Those are some of the best movies ever.
Yeah, you go and make one then, Chris, idiot.
Yeah, he's dead now too, so he can't. But
did he do anything? Or is he just the son of someone who did something?
No, he did adapt and compile a lot of Tolkien stuff. Like the Silmarillion.
Silmarillion 2.
Yeah, the Silmarillion 2. Yeah. He compiled all the appendices and things like that so that they were kind of more coherent instead of just random notes and scribblings into the Silmarillion and the other volumes. Anyway, my question is, what is something... We've talked about things we love. We haven't really talked about things we don't love. But what is something that you are just yearning, begging, pleading, hoping, praying that gets adapted that either hasn't been adapted or has been adapted so poorly once that you really think it needs a second chance?
Oh, I'm pretty lucky because I think we need another shot at the Harry Potter series. And so I'm glad we're getting it again.
That is a great point. I am so glad you said it before I did because I would have gone out for a long time.
Yeah, I was also going to say Harry Potter.
Yeah, I'll just kind of leave it at that. We don't have to go too in depth because it's pretty obvious.
That was the obvious. That was
the obvious one. Yeah, they dropped the ball. Let's see that 10-season show definitely exist.
Yeesh, man.
Well,
can I
go for it?
Can I just offer, this won't happen, but can you imagine after the next George R.R. Martin, George Rorge Martin book comes out, that they just redid season 8 of Game of Thrones?
That would be
very nice.
Wouldn't that be so nice? And it's far enough out that they won't be able to. Maybe you just recast everybody.
That would be crazy. I was going to say, imagine just recasting everyone.
Yeah.
And making like 4
because everybody's
going
to be a whole lot older.
Yeah.
No, my guess, we might get a full... I bet we will get a full remakes or remake of
Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but for Game of Thrones.
Once the books are fully out,
because they're perfect.
Until season 8.
Yeah, like 6 seasons of it are perfect.
Yeah,
that's the bummer. That's the worst part of it all.
See, here's my thing. I think I brought this up in the Game of Thrones episode, but season 7 I actually really liked.
Oh, same.
Even though it started leading down the wrong path during season 7, which I totally recognize, but you could tell that's when the rushing started to happen. But it started rushing from the slow burn that it had been. So for me, it just kind of felt like, oh man, we're pacing up. Like things are happening.
Especially
and I was like,
binging it.
This is sweet.
Yeah.
Looking back on it at some of the stuff that happened, I'm like, yeah, maybe that's not the best thing for the show in general. But like, yeah, if we got even if they just did the story from where it left off, like from the beginning of season 7, if they redid it and did like a 4-season, just kind of like it's its own thing, but totally. It's Game of Thrones again. Maybe you call that Song of Ice and Fire. and like that's what
the
that
last two
series
books
is called, and it just covers like the last two books of that.
I could
be
see
pretty cool.
them doing something like that. Honestly, I could see that happening more so than maybe like
remaking
the whole thing. Or even, like, I was going to say remaking something like Twilight that wasn't as well received by non-fans, but they are remaking Twilight as well,
so pumped about that.
So awesome.
Finally.
Into a TV series, right?
Into a TV series as well.
So good.
Yep.
The one
For
thing
ABC.
On the CW, right?
Yeah, the CW. Yeah.
That show that book is just like so packed with stuff. And you know that for those movies, they just had to cut out so much.
So much important information.
There's so many layers to those books, and the movies just were kind of a simplified. It's going to work.
It's just a perfect idea. So
it's a perfect medium.
It's a perfect idea. And yeah, man. See, I love that idea. Now I'm attached to that of the last two books whenever they come out. After they are out, and they have a few years to be adopted by the culture and people have read them, then in 2035 or whenever, they're like, hey guys, we're adapting the final two books because they didn't get a proper adaptation. That would be really cool. And fully recast everyone and just pick up saying, hey, here's where we are in the story, loosely connect them. Kind of like a bit of a Rings of Power type thing, which a lot of people didn't like, but you could kind of be like, yeah, it's not actually connected to the Lord of the Rings movies, but it is based on the same works.
But it's obviously the same, like connected to the same story.
Yeah. And everyone's recast, so I could see that being awesome as long as they get good people to make it and respect the source material instead of the crap we got.
It could be really cool. It also could be way bad if done wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Can you imagine?
So you'd have to treat it very carefully. You'd be on thin ice through the whole writing and production of it. But if you did it right, it would be so cool to have in the world. So that's my answer.
Good answer.
Thanks for the compliment.
I've got a couple that I'll throw out very quickly. Because the first one, Red Rising. I've talked about this book
I was gonna say.
way too much. So let's move on.
Or not enough.
Go read it. But yeah, maybe not enough. I want to start a new podcast and
called Read Red Rising.
Read Red Rising.
That's kind of a fun idea, actually. But I'll give you two others that I would like to see. One is we talked about how much we enjoyed the Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out. What's cool about Dungeons and Dragons is it itself is basically like a medium for storytelling.
Yeah.
You just get together with some friends and you make up a story together, and it's very fun.
True.
But there are some modules or playable stories you can run at the table that are outlined that are very... Some of them are really cool. Some of them are a little bit less cool, but pretty much all of them have so much like material that you can make something really, really fun out of.
Totally.
So I'm pitching a remake, or not a remake, but like a new installment into the D&D franchise, we'll call it, movie universe, that follows The Curse of Strahd.
Nice.
Which is a very gothic horror themed setting with a vampire lord as the big bad evil guy of the world. And so I've played in this one. It's super fun, very creepy, and I think it'd be more of a horror comedy as well. Like the last one was an action comedy. And I think that'd be very fun. And I don't know if it'll ever... I doubt it would ever get made, just because horror comedy, that's a harder sell. But that's one idea.
Very cool.
And the other one is, I don't know the story, or I haven't read it before, but I know the story decently well. And that is Heir to the Empire, the Star Wars like sequel trilogy that
but
we
in
should have
books
gotten.
And not Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there are books that follow kind of the original three homies, and
Yep, that's exactly correct.
The story after the fall of the Empire, and what comes of that. I would just like to see that made. You know, something that follows those characters instead of saying like, oh, it's like still Skywalker saga, but she's kind. So she's Palpatine, but he's Han Solo, son.
Hey, got it?
Freaking ridiculous.
Yes,
give us money.
Is this connected?
So, yeah.
Here's my... I'm making a bet. Official Man Cave Movie Night prediction. There's a movie in development right now that Dave Filoni is going to be directing. My prediction is Jared gets his dream and Heir to the Empire is adapted. That has been kind of the rumblings of the rumor mill, is people are thinking, especially with Thrawn being introduced in Ahsoka in live action, and they're like, the movie is going to be a culmination of the post-Episode 6, pre-Episode 7 stuff. And so people are like, they've already brought back Luke. Why not Han and Leia? Mm-hmm. And maybe, hopefully by that point, they learn their lesson to not CGI them and they just recast them as people.
That's what I was going to say. If they CGI them, I also, Man Cave Movie Night prediction, we will burn down the mouse.
We will hunt him and burn him.
Arson.
Dude, especially Mandalorian Season 2, where it looked like Face App, like free Face App.
So bad. So bad. Such a horrible way to ruin an incredible moment. But that is my prediction, is that they do some sort of adaptation with that movie, and they have Han, Luke, and Leia, Ahsoka, Thrawn, and they kind of culminate that. And it's not a sequel trilogy, but it does kind of scratch that itch of getting to see those characters on screen together. But none of them played by their original actors. You just have to suspend disbelief, which you have to do in every movie anyway, so who cares?
Yeah.
But that's a great answer. Those are both great answers, I will say. So
thank you for the compliment.
Hats off to Jared. And let me say, mine is The Cursed Child, back to Harry Potter. Joking. I'm joking, because that was one of the worst things I've ever read. That thing was so stinky.
Same.
I'm sure it's good as
I thought you were for real.
No way, dude. Are you kidding me? Here's another prediction that will never.
Can you imagine if he was for real and we both just went ugh and booed him?
And I'm like,
and that was his actual opinion.
I would have. Hey, this would have turned into a debate episode, because I would have ripped you down, bro.
I would love to see the stage adaptation just to see what it's like, because I've only read the script, and the script was just not interesting, and I hate it. Actively hate it.
Actively bad.
Every single decision they made. So that is not something I think they should adapt. Here's a prediction as well that will never get confirmed because there's no reason they would. But I bet that they approached the original three, like at Warner Brothers, and they were like, hey, what if you guys came back for a Cursed Child movie? And they were like, no. And so they said, remake. And that's why we're getting the show. I will bet you that is the reason. They wanted to adapt Cursed Child or some sort of sequel follow-up to those movies. And they're like, we're not interested. So they're like, we'll find new 11-year-olds to cast. And
yeah. And they were like, we already tried a prequel and they suck bad.
I forgot about
So maybe we just tell the same story.
Those exist, man.
But the thing is,
those fully exist. It's a trilogy.
It's a trilogy.
It's a trilogy that exists.
They wanted to make it a quintology of 5. They cut off the last 2, luckily. But at the same time, there's the appetite for Harry Potter content, because Hogwarts Legacy was the highest grossing video game last year. So shout out Adam Cofford. But people want
friend
that
of the
Harry
podcast.
Potter.
Shout out.
Yeah, friend of the podcast.
He's verified. Gerard Way follows him on Instagram.
Look, that is true.
For $5 a month on our Patreon, you can shout out Lucas's dad.
Look him up on IMDb. You might be impressed with some of his credits. Hogwarts Legacy is the only one probably you'll be impressed by, but still pretty cool. So that is not my answer. My answers are a little bit different. Not adaptations of non-existent fantasy novels or things like that, but there are a couple, I think, glaring omissions in adaptations of historical figures, and those, off the top of my head, are Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh man, I did not. Oh, idiot! I didn't want to do this.
Idiot.
Leonardo da Vinci. No, Leonardo da Vinci. And
I was like,
we need a Leo DiCaprio movie.
I was like, we can make a Leo DiCaprio movie. I don't know if he's a historical figure, though.
I don't know if we need that. No, we don't. But Leonardo da Vinci, I think, would be awesome to see a film adaptation of his life.
It's a spy thriller.
It's a spy thriller. And Teddy Roosevelt.
Da Vinci Ultimatum.
I think is a huge historical figure that has never had any sort of even like TV show.
Yeah, he was like 4,000 pounds. He was huge.
He was insanely massive. He was one of the big four on Mount Rushmore, and there's never been squat for
dude.
him.
He's that big.
Yeah.
He's big enough to be the size of Mount Rushmore, and there's not a movie about the guy. Come on.
Yeah. Because it's like there's Lincoln adaptations, there's Founding Fathers, they show up all the time, but there's no love for my man Teddy Roosevelt. We got to get a Teddy Roosevelt adaptation. And a Leonardo DiCaprio biopic. Dude. Those would both, or even like miniseries, like the John Adams miniseries for HBO, starring Paul Giamatti. Very good. And, you know,
awesome.
Something like that, like a high quality treatment, either in a movie or a TV miniseries, would be awesome. Because those are two of my favorite historical figures. And
that's a good answer. I like that route that you took.
Thanks.
I as well like that.
Thank you.
I mean,
hats off to me.
I want to know how DiCaprio got his start.
Yeah.
That part of history has been kind of like not represented. So,
and in both of these scenarios, Leonardo DiCaprio plays Teddy Roosevelt and Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah. And when they make the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, I want someone to go full Jim Carrey for Man in the Moon with Leo DiCaprio and just pretend that they are Leo DiCaprio the whole time. Yeah. But because I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio is just kind of like normal, they're just going to like come out of that experience like caring more about climate change, I guess.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, cool. And like wanting to be an actor more so than they were before.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be super cool and interesting. And then make a documentary about that on Netflix.
Yeah, called Leo and Jonathan, because that's who will play Jonathan Johnson.
Yeah.
That's who will play
up and coming.
Or his brother Stitch Johnson.
Yeah, Stitch Johnson as
Leo and Stitch.
Yeah, Leo and Stitch.
That'd be pretty good.
Final
That's the one joke I brought to this podcast.
Or it could be Sagittarius.
Sagittarius Johnson?
Leo and Sagittarius.
Oh, because of signs?
I'm Gemini.
Yep.
Gemini.
That's what
I think it's pronounced Gemini, actually.
Oh, dude, you will get shot in the head if you say that to certain people.
Oh, are you a Gemini?
What's your sign? I'm a Gemini.
You were born in November, so you're a Gemini?
On sight.
Just get the sign wrong.
Get the time wrong.
And the date.
Oh, jeez.
Kind of a final thing before we wrap up and shout out our Niall's mom by proxy through some of our bestest friends. Film recommendation is the movie called Adaptation, directed by Spike Jonze, written by Charlie Kaufman, who is a very surrealist guy. The movie is just...
no way this is good.
It is so good. It is so weird. The movie is based off of a book called The Orchid Dream, and the movie itself is about Charlie Kaufman, the writer of the movie, and his fictitious twin, both trying to adapt this real book into a movie. And that's what the movie's about.
Kind of Amadeus style?
No, but it's like surreal because it's like... It's, I mean, not really.
Meta.
Because it's like... It's almost like Being John Malkovich, also written by Charlie Kaufman, where it's like there are real events, like John Malkovich is a real person, but the movie is, you know, fictitious. And so it's very surreal and weird and funky, but it's a very good representation of someone, you know, trying to adapt something well. And Charlie Kaufman in real life as well does not have a twin brother, but he and his twin brother as the writers, and they were nominated for Oscars, which I find hilarious.
That sounds like a really cool movie.
It is. It is. But yeah, that's my final recommendation just in terms of adaptations. The movie adaptation is great, but very surreal. So just keep that in mind before you go into it.
Sweet.
I dig it. That's awesome.
Good rec.
Hey, everyone. Shout out to Kel real quick.
Hey, yeah.
If you're in your car, if you're at work,
close your eyes.
If you're swimming and listening to this through a Bluetooth speaker that's water resistant, take a break and just say, shout out to Kel for me. Except for the following people who don't need to say it because I'm going to say it for you right now.
There you go.
Nick Bell, Michael Polonsic, Easy Law, Britton Inkley, Riley Allen, Ian James Martin, and Hannah Steed. For those of you that aren't these people and you're wondering, why do they not have to say shout out to Kel? It's because they just did. By supporting us on Patreon for $3 a month, they shout out my mom, Kel, every week on this podcast. And also, they get access to bonus episodes called post-credits episodes.
Whoa.
Where we talk,
They're better. They're a lot better.
We do also... it's way better than this. And it's fun and good and cool. And that money that we get from that, we turn back into giveaways that we can do for you guys. So...
Like a Venom Funko Pop.
Next time, if you want a $50 gift card instead of a $25 gift card, you better support us on Patreon so that we can fund that. So, anyway, we love you. We miss you already. And if you miss us, you can see more of us by following us on Instagram and rating us 5 stars. Because when you rate us 5 stars, we come up higher in the search algorithm.
And we like it.
We've got to shorten this ending.
No.
It's so long.
It's only 4.5 minutes. I think we need to make it 10 minutes.
Oh, man.
I
thought
like
you were going to say the end a couple times. You're doing really good.
You're doing great, but we just
really
need to script it so that it goes quicker.
We need to script it.
But I like the unscripted because then I feel like I get a,
You get a 1-2 punch on them.
Stretch my muscles a little
I'm
bit.
just yearning. I'm just quaking to let my bazinga out. Just let me say it already.
True. I want to see our audience engagement up until the last 5 to 10 minutes.
Well, to be fair, I'm sure that's the same for a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, totally.
I
mean,
that's 100%.
We should start having this a quarter of the way through the episode.
Yeah.
Or start.
Honestly,
we just do a little break and we're like, hey, here's an ad. And it's just us doing our shout out.
Want to break from the ads?
And then it's us again. That'd be kind of fun.
Anyway, that's post-credits convo. Thank you guys so much for listening. We love you. And we'll see you on another Man Cave Movie Night Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, bazinga. There we go. Such a relief to say it. Love you guys.